Best is maintaining its stable outlook on the French non-life insurance market. I'm Yvette Essen for AM Best TV, and I'm joined by Ghislain Le Cam, Director for Analytics for AM Best, to talk about the rationale for that outlook. So Ghislain, in 2018, we published for the first time a stable outlook on the French non-life sector, and that's been maintained in 2019. What are the reasons underpinning this decision?
So indeed, still a stable outlook for the French market in 2019, and that mainly reflects the fact that overall the market dynamics are stable, broadly stable, still very challenging, but broadly stable. The fact that in this environment, the insurance market in France, the insurers have been fairly resilient. We're talking about an environment of severe competition with pressure on technical margins, and still interest rates at levels historically low. And finally, the fact that the market overall has maintained technical profitability. The caveat I would put is that the technical profitability has been relatively marginal, but it's something that has been maintained through the years thanks to insurers able to pass to policyholders regular rate increases on their core line of business, and also the fact that overall the market is pretty well diversified.
I'd like to pick up on a few of the points that you mentioned there. One thing you did talk about was the competitive market. What are some of the factors that are contributing to the dynamics of the market?
So you're right, the French market is extremely competitive, and I think one of the key reasons is actually driven first by the composition of the market itself, with the significant presence in France of mutuals. Now, one of the key features of mutuals is the fact that they do not have shareholders, and because they do not have shareholders, they do not have to pay dividends to them, unlike their traditional insurers who will have to remunerate the capital. Now, in this context, this enables mutuals to operate with lower technical margins or higher loss ratios and offer very competitive rates to policyholders. So that's the first element that has been fueling price competition in France over recent years. Another element is the increasing interest of bank insurers in insurance, and we have seen them becoming a bit more aggressive, and because they have a good reach of the policyholders, again, this has been another factor on the market contributing to the competitive environment. And maybe another aspect that is not so much structural, but relates to regulatory changes we have seen over recent years. I'm thinking here of the Hamon Law or the Bourquin Amendment. And basically, those changes have enabled policyholders to switch their insurance providers more often and more easily. So again, easy to see the reason why this change again has been fueling price competition on the market.
Despite this market being competitive, how well placed are companies, so the companies that we rate in the non-life sector, are they well capitalized?
We view the market as a whole as pretty well capitalized. Since the introduction of Solvency II in 2016, the coverage ratio, the Solvency II coverage ratio for the non-life segment in France has been above 250%. So a solid position, and it is something we estimate will remain as capital bases are expected to remain. To continue to progress with a good organic capital generation. Maybe one thing to mention when it comes to balance sheet strengths and solvency level for the market is the fact that because of the historically low interest rates that have been prevailing over recent years on the market, we have seen an increased appetite for some, I would say, non-traditional asset classes in the like of real estate, or maybe a bit more of equities. This has been driven by an appetite to preserve investment yields for the market. Having said that, overall the asset allocation for the French non-life market remains relatively conservative. So we would think that the market would be able to absorb market shocks.
Looking forward, are there any factors that might contribute to us changing our outlook to negative, for example?
Yes, and it is a similar as what we saw last year, in fact, and I think this is really structural, inherent to the French non-life market because of this significant competition. I've said it, the technical equilibrium is actually relatively weak. So if insurers were not able to pass the rate increases that we have seen over recent years to the policyholders, so that the technical results were to turn into the red for a sustained period, this is something that could lead us to revise to negative our outlook.
A copy of AM Best Market Segment Outlook on the French non-life sector can be found on ambest.com. For AM Best TV, I'm Yvette Essen.